Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dad's listening to Tomcats, talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. This some weeding now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. All right, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Today, we continue our director's spotlight for Christopher Nolan. Today is Dunkirk, released July 21st, 2017, written by Christopher Nolan, directed by Christopher Nolan. I am Colton Robertson, and I am joined by Joseph George. What's up, homie?
Well, what up, what up? Always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and it is always a pleasure to have you, and I'm especially excited to talk to you today about Dunkirk.
Mm-hmm.
I officially have a new second favorite Wes Anderson, so heavy on the mind, Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah.
I mean, Interstellar is going to be hard to top, and I doubt it will ever be topped. But, you know, literally last week, we were talking about how The Prestige was probably my favorite looking movie of Christopher Nolan's. That is officially not the case anymore, as I've moved on to Dunkirk, a visually pleasing movie to the fucking max. Love this shit.
A surprise as well. I don't know, I was coming into this movie being like, well, it's Nolan, he's dark, he's gritty, he's real, so this is gonna be just very, a lot of that. But I was very surprised to see
potentially his most colorful film to date, man.
Yeah.
Like literally my favorite, let's kick it off with my favorite shot of the movie, because it's literally how the movie kicked off. The street with the buildings lining both sides and the paper raining down with the soldiers walking down it immediately set the tone in a way that I did not anticipate. And I was immediately taken by it. I was like, okay, I'm in. I'm excited for the way this one's going to look. And that was more than anything else, man. I loved the way this movie looked. The color palette was extremely pleasing.
Minty, or like a I don't know what, turquoise maybe, like a lot of blue, like light blues.
Yeah, the blues had like this mint hue, and the warm colors had what I called like a creamsicle, sort of like this orangish thing going on.
Okay.
That I really, really enjoyed, and I thought it was just lovely to look at. And not only is it just lovely to look at, it's excellently written, excellently filmed. Like, it's fantastically performed, and it's a very simple movie. It feels so straightforward. There's not a lot of like, oh, what did he mean by this? Nah, I think we can pretty simply gather what he meant by this. And
very different than other war movies, I think, as well. Like a lot of other war movies, you kind of follow like a small group of soldiers, just kind of in like have their experience, and a lot of like downtime, like usually in war movies, like a lot of like, all right, we just had this big battle, now let's rest a little bit, let's talk with each other, have a good scene, let our actors go, and then we'll get back to the action and whatever. But this one was just kind of like action, like there's no real like downtime that's had. It's really just like I feel like more like the realism part that comes from this of Nolan is like the realism of like, I felt like it was just filming what happened at war. Like, I don't know, like I was, I usually don't like war movies a whole lot, or like, I don't know, I don't really get much out of them, I guess. But this one was just like,
this was fundamentally different than a lot of war movies. And it's potentially my favorite war movie I've ever watched, as far as like modern warfare is considered, like, because fantastical old medieval shit, I kind of value those movies in a different way than I do war with guns and planes and 20th century warfare, I should say. Like it's a different thing. I think when it came to like front of mind, Apocalypse Now is
it's more what you were talking about. That sort of
Mm-hmm.
downtime, you are getting to know these specific characters, this group of specific characters on this mission that destroys their soul. This one is about literally one battle.
Yeah.
Not necessarily about one person experiencing this battle, about everybody experiencing this battle, which it kind of reframes it in a way that it makes it about survival and saving people as opposed to fighting and killing them. Which, because we barely see the enemy unless it is in a plane or briefly at the beginning and end, like
you get them shooting, like whenever that small group, like Harry Styles and that small group find themselves in that little boat, find a shelter when the water's down or tide's down, and then it's just the bullets that shoot through. You never actually see the like Nazis actually shooting them. It's just you see the bullet holes coming through the boat, and that's it. Like it's just the threat is there, and you know that, like that there's definitely the threat there, and you see bombing runs on the beach, but you never actually see like a German soldier, like you never hear one of them talk or like like it's very just like, yep, they're the threat.
Only time they're ever on screen is when they capture Farrier at the very end.
Oh yeah, that's nuts.
And that's really interesting to do specifically for a World War II movie, where unanimously the villain is the fucking villain. Who the bad guys are. The Nazis are not nice. And so it's so interesting to kind of take that in a way where, I've always complimented the Indiana Jones movies for this, because recently there was a review for Dial of Destiny that was like, this movie's all about, and it was just some guy who's a fucking idiot who was like, this movie doesn't do anything to explain why the bad guys are bad. The bad guys are Nazis. You have to analyze why you don't think they are inherently bad. But that's something I've always loved about the Indiana Jones movies, is that they don't spend any time trying to convince you Nazis are bad. They assume Nazis are bad. And so that's something that this movie does really well, where like it's not even about like the fascism that the Nazis are about. It's about their presence being evil. Like it's just like they are a threat to life as we know it. We need to protect ourselves, and we need to protect the people we care about. And like that's powerful stuff, man. It ultimately Interstellar, I need to give it a rewatch, because I mean, like, I just love that movie, and there's like no way it's topped for me. But even so, I think that this is I prefer this movie in a casual setting. I think, I think length matters there. It is shorter. But I also think it's generally just, Interstellar gets me to cry for just really profound and like almost overwhelming reasons, where you're just kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe this is all coming together like this. Like, oh man, it's like literally what it's like. There are 4 or 5 different times in this movie that I'm crying, and it's like, this happened to people. This is a real fucking thing.
That was always my thing while watching this. Like, I love Interstellar, and I'm fresh off a rewatch of it too, and I can comfortably say it is still my number one.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, even so, I haven't given that a rewatch recently, and it's my number one.
But like there is a difference of like, Interstellar is just a made up story. You can tie some real world things to it, like, oh well, maybe that's where the world is going if we don't pay it, but it's not. You can't really step back and be like, oh, this really has happened to people, and like, oh, this is terrible. Like, when I was watching this movie, it was the constant thought in the back of my mind that like, wait a minute, this actually happened, and not that it just actually happened, but this is just 1 week of this war. Like, this is a singular week that we are seeing, or a day or an hour, depending on what storyline that we're in,
dealing with,
which I think was also really cool. Like, to kind of say that, all right, these ground soldiers that are trying to get off into the boat, that happens over the span of a week. The rescue mission of the yachts and the civilians, that happens on the last day. of this week, and then the air battles with Tom Hardy happens over the course of the last hour of this. But you see them stretched out through the whole movie as if they're all kind of happening concurrently, and but it's like time is kind of different for those people. Like, I bet like up in those planes for that 1 hour felt like a whole week,
week.
Yeah. And
that's dude. The editing in this movie is outstanding. The pacing of this movie is impeccable, especially given those different timelines. Like, I've got chills talking about it. I'm left in a place where this is so easily, we talked last week with The Prestige where, there's a gap between Interstellar and The Dark Knight, and The Prestige is closer to The Dark Knight than it is Interstellar, like that sort of thing. This is closer to Interstellar than it is The Dark Knight for me, and this is so easily too, as far as my favorite Nolan films are concerned. Like, there's just this rawness about it where, something that I've always appreciated about a lot of war movies, like any war movies that I do appreciate, are typically very clearly anti-war in their sentiment, and at least that's how I take them to be, because it so obviously shows a negative effect on the people who are there, that are taking part in it. And one of the things that usually drives me away from enjoying war movies is also, patriotism and nationalism and stuff like that. Like that, typically I'm like, all right, well, now we're getting into kind of a propaganda-y sort of territory where I can't really get behind it. I don't think there's any of that here, which is, because it's kind of funny, because my favorite line in this movie is when it's my favorite scene and my favorite line, the arrival of the civilian ships. Easily, that's a part where I'm crying.
Yeah. Come on.
It's like he's looking through the binoculars and someone goes, "What do you see?" And he goes, "Home." Yeah, I love that shit, and that's the closest they get to this sort of like patriotism for Britain, or England. It's but more than that, the fact that it is about saving people makes it humanitarian more than it does nationalist. It's
not like they're out killing Nazis, which I'm all for. If you're gonna go kill anybody, like kill Nazis, but no Nazis die in this movie other than some planes that you see crash down. You don't and that's it. Those are the only Nazis that die. But everyone else that dies is the people that are just trying to escape. Like, and you have that, like, Churchill is trying to get, what was it, like 30,000 or 40,000 out of the 300,000 or whatever that were there. Like, they were like, we'll be lucky if we get that many, and it's like, it's just the thought of that, like, is nuts. Like, we're fighting this war. We have lost this battle. We need to get our people out and get them out, but that's not simply done. That's a whole lot of people to try to get out.
And the layer on top where these soldiers were so worried that the reception they'd receive at home was disdain because they lost.
Oh man. Ooh, that might be another line that I didn't think of. The blind man that was kind of like handing out like blankets or something to the soldiers that were back.
He won't even look us in the eye.
But what he said, like, he was like, I forgot what it was exactly, but it was like, we didn't do anything, we lost, but we're alive or whatever. And he's like, that's enough, or something, like, it was like, that's enough, or something like that. But I don't know, it was it that, or
again,
was it?
That's what makes this movie so unique compared to so many war movies to me, is that it values human life in a way that I don't think you get a lot out of war movies. War movies are typically very plain about the destruction upon human life. In this movie, it's not like it's like, oh, war's all fun and games. Like, I'm not saying it makes it easy. It obviously these people are in danger at every single turn, and they make it obvious that these people are terrified. And usually that's all there is in a war movie, that when they make it out, it's just kind of relief usually in a war movie. When it comes to this one, it's genuine joy that they make it out, and that's like I feel like that's a rarity. I don't know why I feel that way, like, as far as the war movies I've seen, but like,
Mm.
Just genuinely one of my favorite, if not my favorite war movie of all time. Like it was.
I can't really think of any other. Like usually I'll watch a war movie just because it's like I'm watching it with other people, or like my dad is watching it, and like I'll be like, all right, I'll stick around and watch this. But like this is one that I would actually want.
I will watch
to recommend
again.
And like and like I this is just a few like it's
just got added to Netflix. So
really,
yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Was it
since the gap? I rented it, and then like literally 2 or 3 days ago, it got added to Netflix.
What are the odds of that? That is nuts. But no, it was like the moment they get back, and like Harry Styles, like actually, like I don't know, I was very surprised for him.
I'm gonna tell you, dog. This is a good example of why a director is so very important on the set, bro. I've watched Harry Styles in a lot of stuff. He is not good. He's not a good actor.
Interesting. Yeah, because I only know him other than like the post-credit scene in Eternals or whatever. Like that's the only other thing I think I've seen him in.
Yeah, I mean, like he was in Don't Worry, Darling last year, which he got a lot of flack for like the accent kind of coming in and out, where you couldn't tell if he was supposed to be British or he was supposed to be English.
Okay,
or American, I should say. And so there was like this whole, and I feel like he got crapped on a little too hard for that. Like I feel like people were like, well, he's obviously not an actor, and that comes through. But he wasn't god awful,
Yeah,
he's genuinely good in this though.
Yeah, like in I remember like scenes that stick out to me, like in that boat whenever they were all trapped down there, and they were like, yeah, we got to get rid of someone, like it has to happen. We have to get rid of the weight. And then like I remember one person is like, one person isn't even gonna do anything, but like they were just so freaked out and like they didn't know what was going on. But like him performing there was really good. And then like on the train, whenever he's like, like he's looking away, can't look at the people at all. And, like, having the paper read to him, like, no, you read it, just read it to me. See
I can't read it. Yeah.
And then like, the 2 like beer bottles held through, given through the window, and he like just seen, I don't know, like, I think.
Well, I'm not going to equate them in terms of musical talent. I love Harry Styles. I really enjoy Harry Styles' music. So like, don't get me wrong there, but like to have 2 movies in a row where Christopher Nolan casts a musician in a very prominent role that plays a rather large part in the movie, in David Bowie for Nikola Tesla and The Prestige, and then Harry Styles here in Dunkirk. It is interesting to see him go back into that bag a little bit for that. Cause I mean, like I said, I'm not going to equate their musical talent because I think David Bowie is just a different fucking tier. It's hard to be as talented as David Bowie. But Harry Styles, I fucking adore that guy's music. So you're never going to hear me be like, oh, he's overrated. No, I think he's a wonderful musician. But it was just, I forgot he was in this movie until he popped up, and I was like, oh yeah, this is the movie with Harry Styles in it. I remember seeing like previews for this and being like, the guy from One Direction is in Dunkirk, huh? Like that's something we're doing.
No, but
and I mean, like I was shocked at how good he was in this movie. He didn't get my performance nod or anything, but he was
not
good.
Quite. And if there is a main character in this movie, I think his name is Tommy. I think that's the kind of like the guy that, like, who's the guy that we start the movie out with that runs from the German soldiers, and then he like
right. I believe it's Tommy.
Because I think it's
Tommy, played by Fionn Whitehead.
Yeah, I think he was. I really, really liked him in this movie, and I felt like he was. If there is a main character, which I don't really think there really is, like I don't know,
truly.
Like, I think it could be him though, if you were to say, like, if there is a main character, and I really liked his performance here because he was like actually having to grapple with like moral decisions, like in that boat with Harry. Like Harry's like, no, get rid of him. Obviously, it's him. We're getting him out of here. But he's the one that's kind of like, hold on, like we're thinking about this way too fast. Like, hold on, like what are we doing here? And how like you see him run through all of that, and he's finally at the beach, but then he sees one guy all by himself burying someone, so he goes over, helps him out.
Yeah.
It's a nice drink of water because of it, but then, you know, like, I don't know, I really liked all of his moments, and it's not necessarily...
Yeah, like he was about to take a shit there.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
he's like, "Ah, man, well, I probably shouldn't do this right now." You know, like that was a little bit funny. But like, it's one of those like crude funny things where like, it's not actually funny. It's like a really dark humor where it's like nothing in this situation is funny. And this is obviously not funny to them, but as a viewer, it's like, this guy, like, this is war. He's about to take a shit 20 feet from someone's grave.
Yeah.
You know, like that's...
And it's crazy how like something can happen to some, like a big, like a plane can come in, bomb a beach, you know, and there's just dead people all around, but then they get up, get right back in line, you know, just like, it's just what they have to do. It's like, they're so used, or like, it's just war. Like, I can't get myself in that headspace at all. Like, it's to put yourself in the shoes of a soldier, like during that time, like hearing a plane coming, how scary that would, like hearing that noise and just being like, well,
whenever, like another one of my favorite parts in the movie, and like I was so close to going with it for my favorite scene, is when Farrier, his plane dies, and then he manages to keep it in the air long enough to save everyone. You know, like everyone was going to die if he didn't save them in that moment. Whenever, because it reminded me of you know, there's that moment in, this is a funny comparison because it's war versus Star Wars, but in The Bad Batch, whenever Hunter hears the TIE fighter coming from a distance, and he realizes like, oh no, we are fucked. You know, like when they hear that and they see it in the distance, they all just kind of go, well, that's all, folks. We're fucking dead. You know, like that sort of hopelessness is just so hard to even comprehend, you know. And I thought this movie did a fantastic job at it.
Yeah, like there's no outrunning a plane. They can't go anywhere. They're already pushed back to the beach. It's like, well, I'll lay down, I'll cover my head, and just hope I don't get hit by one of these bombs that gets dropped. And it's like, holy shit, like, god damn, like how just scary that like the noise of the plane too. Like it starts very faint, and then like just the like it's starting to ramp up, and you're just like, oh god.
The sound design in this movie is something that is incredibly well done. There's like technically, and I mean that in the sense of literally the sound design, the visuals, the visual effects. Like technically, it is a brilliantly made movie. You know, there's one of my favorite visuals that they return to consistently is during the plane dogfights. I think this is a very specific choice if I'm recalling correctly. Every time you see a plane in the air, all you see in the background is horizon. It goes on forever and seemingly every direction. And you know that's not the case. They are protecting people on the shore. They are right there. You know, but it's further emphasizing their being alone. You know, like they're out there by themselves. There's no one coming to help them. And the only time you see a plane from the perspective of the ground is when Farrier saves them. When they're all there together in that moment, sort of, you know, like it's kind of it's just a
Farrier
fucking movie, dude.
That's my character for the movie. I mean, I love planes. I love it's what I'm studying. So, I mean, anytime that there was planes in the air and like him, like marking down how much fuel he has, he doesn't even know, like he doesn't, his gauge is wrong, or if it's actually like, well, you got shot, so maybe you're leaking fuel. Maybe you actually don't have, you know, he's like, I don't know, but I know I'm on a mission, you know, and he's like, I have to protect these people. And I don't know. I loved, you know, like, and also it's Tom Hardy, which is really, really cool. You know, just having him up there.
You know, we got that core. You know, Wes Anderson had his Jason Schwartzman and Owen Wilson and Adrian Brody and Bill Murray and all these people who keep coming back. When you come to Christopher Nolan, that's Tom Hardy, Cillian Murphy, that sort of core there for him, and both of them pop up in this movie. And My my favorite performance was actually Cillian Murphy as literally doesn't have a name. He is just the shell-shocked soldier.
Which insane. Like it's his story was really, really cool.
Oh,
like
dude,
that
kind of heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
You know, whenever he kills Barry Keoghan also in this movie, you know, love Barry Keoghan. And he, you know, he's like, is he going to be okay? And Peter's just gone down there and is like, no, he's dead. But he comes up and he's like, yeah, he'll be fine. You know, it's like he understands that's what he needs to hear, you know. And so that kid, Peter gets my favorite character. The kid on the boat. That part of the story was my favorite, the civilian boat going to help the soldiers. Just everything that happened there was probably the most moving part of the movie for me, simply because, you know, when the revelation comes around that this guy's older brother and this guy's son had died 2 weeks into the war, and the reason he's going to save these soldiers is because he knows there's a parent out there who misses their kid, you know, like and wants them to come home. Like, bro, that shit fucking destroyed me.
Mr. Dawson. Yeah, like and I know him as
Ready
Player One, whoever made, you know, I don't know his name in there. But like that's what I know him as. But then like, I think you're right. Like I think it's the best part of the movie because we can't really put ourselves in the soldier shoes at all. Like we can feel and be like, holy shit, that is terrible, and I would never want to experience that. But you can sort of place yourselves in the shoes of Mr. Dawson and Peter and them a little easier. You know, I've never had to take my boat out and go try to save some soldiers or whatever, but it's like the civilian point of view of a war, you know, and him like at first it's kind of like, all right, dude, you're kind of a little crazy. Like, why are you going out here this easy? Like, do you have a death wish? You know, like at first you're kind of like, I don't know, like you're just doing this all, you know, maybe he wanted to be a soldier, or like maybe he wanted like just to fight and like be in the fight, but then you learn it's like
midlife crisis sort of thing.
Yeah, but then you learn it's like, no, it's like it's
incredibly personal.
Oh yeah, and it's like his son died there, and it's like, no, he's got to save as many people as he can.
Oh, and I think that's something that this movie goes to show, is that like war, while it is the obviously most damaging to the soldiers who fight in it, the people at home care a lot. You know, like more than anything about the people returning safely. You know, and they kind of personified that for the majority of this movie was their presence, like being that willing to go into a literal war on your boat, just your fucking boat, you know, like it's not a submarine, it's not fortified by anything, it's just your fucking boat, you know, like that's it's something that I really, really loved in this movie, was the civilian presence and the way that they just cared about saving their people. Like that's
I think my line came from Mr. Dawson. And I don't know exactly when it happened. But I think he's talking to Cillian Murphy. I don't know. I want to give him a name, but like it's weird.
He doesn't have one.
But he says, "Men my age dictate this war. Why shouldn't we be allowed to send our children in to fight it?" And it was just, I don't know, like I think it was during the moment of him saying like, yeah, my son died, you know, like all that explanation. It was just like a moment, like just the moment that was there. Like, I don't know. It was another like emotional moment, like after like that reveal, like and just after who was
George?
Is that the who died? Or, yeah. I mean, just all the chaos that's happening, you know, and George, he's just there. He's like, yeah, I'll come along. Like, he's like, sure. Like, he didn't even really want to go in the first place. And then it's as simple as like just getting, like, nothing happened. Like, there wasn't even really like
hit his head a little too hard.
There. It's just he got hit down, hit his head, and it bled out and died, you know. And then like it's it's just the chaos of war. Like, it's just anything can happen, and like, I just always kept in the back of my mind just being like, oh my god, like, no, this isn't made up. This is like, obviously they probably dramatized and made some things up for the story, but like,
Certainly.
this could have very well happened. Like, I mean, like,
this
very
is a real
easily.
battle that happened.
Yeah, like, the battle's real, but who knows if on this one particular yacht that, you know, a soldier knocked down a young boy and killed him. You know, maybe that is true. I don't know. Maybe they did have a story from a soldier that I don't know what, like, all of the inspiration and stuff was held, like, where
no, it was very interesting because Christopher Nolan is specifically credited with writing this movie. It's not based on any book or anything. It is literally just written by Christopher Nolan, which tells me that, like, these stories they're fictionalized for sure. I'm sure he did a great deal of reading on the Battle of Dunkirk itself, and kind of plugged in where he could find stories to be fulfilling, you know. But yeah, it's even the idea of it possibly having really happened. It's kind of heartrending.
Like that, I don't know. It's insane. Like the sheer number of people that were on screen at once. And like, It's hard to tell. Like, I think for some of the scenes, like, they probably had that many people out there. But then, like, on the beach, whenever, like, the bomb runnings are happening, like, there's no way he actually got that many people to stand out there. Like, is that actually true? Like, I don't know if you know.
Perfectly possible to enlist that many extras, you know. They've filled out stadiums with extras before in movies, you know. Okay. Like, it's like,
yeah, that's fair. Because one of my shots that I think I will go with is whenever they're on the mole. Yeah. I think they call it. I've never heard it referred to as a mole before, but just like the bridge, like the pier or whatever.
Gorgeous.
And just seeing all of their helmet, like, just, I don't know, it's angled perfectly so that you can just see, like, all the way down the line.
And there's like one person's face who's looking up, and that's that's like gorgeous, gorgeous fucking shot, dude.
And it's weird to be like, this is such a gorgeous shot, because then seconds later, a plane just, and they're all like, oh shit, we're all just packed here, we can't go anywhere. And it's like, just like ducking down. It's like, oh my god, it's like the pure chaos that can happen at any moment, and they have no idea. They're just trying to wait to get home or wait to go on a ship, but they don't even know that only they expect 30 or 40,000 of them to get out. And yeah, who was that one, like, captain or like the Coast Guard maybe is who maybe he was. Felt like he came in. Oh man, yeah, I think it was the Coast Guard, and he was like some higher ranking official, and he was like, no, I'm staying here, you know, or whatever. I'm not leaving. I'm staying here, trying to get as many people off as I can. But there was one shot of him. A plane was coming, and he like looked up, and he just kind of closed his eyes, you know, and was like, well, if it's gonna happen, you know, like, forgot, man, I can't even find him on IMDb. I'm trying to. He was just a very small, like, not a very big role, but like, it was just another character that was cared about all the lives, and he tried to get as many people out as he could, and I don't know. I really liked the scenes of the mole. Like, whenever they were just there on the mole, I think it was really done very well.
Yeah, the guy who was like commanding the mole. It was actually played by Kenneth Branagh, who is a very talented director. He was one that I was considering for one of our director's spotlights later on.
Like, I felt like I've seen him in something else, but I couldn't. Yeah,
he's also in Tenet.
That's probably it then. Okay. Because I'm like, man, Infinity War? What? Oh, Voice. An Asgardian distress call.
He's also he also directed Thor.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's a talented gentleman. Commander Bolton. He was the one who delivered my favorite line, what do you see? Boom.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know, like that. That's the thing about this movie, is that there's just like, there's no one huge
the
character.
Fulfillment of his arc. Whenever everyone's riding away, and he's like, "I'm going to stay," and he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm going to get the French out too." You know, like that's
what it was. Yes, thank you. Okay, the French. Yeah, and it was like, what a guy. You know,
dude.
like, just after all the hell they just went through, you know, and he's finally has his chance to go and like go home. He's like, no, we got to get the French out too. And it was just like, oh, like, I don't know.
It's like, my man,
Yeah,
you know, like, and that's what furthers the idea that it's not about any one nation or about any sort of, you know, patriotism in specific. It's about the people. It's about saving lives. And that's something I just value so dearly about this movie, man. It's, I can't speak highly enough about it. It's one of my favorites we've covered so far in our director spotlight, like, period, including Wes Anderson. Like, this is.
And the soldiers that they took first, they called them like Highlanders or something like that, or like what? Like they were a different class or something of soldier, like because the first people that they took, I felt like we're in like or maybe they just weren't foot soldiers or something like that. Maybe they were taking just other people first.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because I was trying to, because there was one, like when they were in that boat and they're like, oh, Harry Styles was like, oh, I know who we're kicking out. I thought he was at first going to be like the German spy. They thought was a German spy or whatever. And they're like, yeah, get him out of here. But then I thought he was actually referring to Tommy, the other guy who he knew like kind of snuck his way like, and was hiding on the pier, like down there, and then got on the boat kind of secret, you know, like kind of snuck his way in there. But then he didn't really get into that. So I didn't know if there was actually like a distinction between the soldiers, or something like that.
I'm not sure. That's a good question. And that's not something I really keyed in on, because I knew that, wasn't the dude they were considering kicking off the boat, like, wasn't the only thing there that he was actually French?
Yeah, he was French.
He
wasn't a German spy.
That you're a German spy. It was just that you are not English. Yeah. You are French.
Yeah.
That's.
Oh yes, that's what I was going to talk about. That scene. I was going somewhere with it. In that boat, whenever like all the chaos, like they're plugging the holes and they're like just water's flooding in. They're like, and they know they need to go. Like eventually, there's a point where it's like, all right, no, like. We need to get out of here. Like, we can't stay here. But they're so focused on the task of, like, keeping the holes plugged that it had to take, like, someone be like, hey, like, stop what you're doing. We got to get out of here, you know? Like, and it's crazy that, like, while you're in war, like, in a battle, it's just, like, there's no, like, there's no, you can't sit back and be like, all right, what am I going to do next? Like, let me think about my next move. It's just, like, very bang, bang, bang. Like,
yeah, you know, it's a panic instinct. You know, like what they know for sure is if they go to the top of the boat, they're easy targets. It becomes a question of, it doesn't even become a question of would you prefer drowning or getting shot. It's just like, well, my best chance of not getting shot is staying in here. And you're not even thinking, oh, I might drown if I do that. You know, like it's just,
holy shit. Every time one of those scenes would pop up and like the action is done, like, I think very well. Like, it's never, action just for action. It's like, oh, note, like, this is really how it was. Like, the boat that they were all on, like, the first boat that was going out.
The bombing
and then,
run that takes it out.
And then, like, all the oil in the water. And then you're just like, oh, fuck. You're like, no. Like, no, like, don't light, you know, I hope that doesn't.
Yeah, whenever,
and then
dude.
And it goes up in flames, and then you see the guy that's underwater, and he's like, because he knows once he goes up, it's like, what do you, like, there's nothing you could do, and he's like, do I drown or do I burn? You know, he's like, and then he just goes up and just starts screaming. I'm like, oh my God, like, this is just terrible. Like, it is just so horrific. Like, it's, can't even fathom, like, I don't know. It's just insane that this isn't made, like, these are, like, sure, that U-boat and whatever, it was, like, for the story, they wrote it to happen then, but, like, that happened all over. Like, that's, like, that's not, like, one event that happened just for this battle. Like, this was all the time.
And that's what makes this even more substantial, is that, like, maybe the specific circumstances of being trapped on the beach and needing a way to get off might have been very specific to Dunkirk. But the horrors that ensue while they're there happened everywhere during the war, you know, like that was not something that was, you know, uniquely singular to Dunkirk. It's
yeah, we weren't even shown what happened to get them to that point.
Yeah.
Like, they were fighting a war in the city, like, there, and they got pushed back to the beach. Like, that, a lot of people had to die there. You know, and like that space had to get taken. They kept getting pushed back, and eventually they're like, all right, yeah, we got to retreat. We got to go. And, like, they don't even think about that. And then I'm assuming the war was because they just got these soldiers back, but this wasn't the end of the war.
No.
You know, like, and it's like, it's still continuing. Like, this isn't over. Like, we get that feeling of like, they're home and like, you know, the celebration, like off the train, whatever. But then it's like, there's still soldiers
everywhere.
Like everywhere else in Europe and wherever, just still fighting, and like it's still going on.
And I think that's like, again, I think the message of this movie is that like the biggest victory that can come from war is people living. You know, it's not like winning the battle is not the actual win. It's the people who survive and make it home. That's a win. You know,
man, and that's, I don't know, maybe that's why this movie is so much more enjoyable of like a war movie. Not enjoyable in the sense of like I like what I'm seeing on screen, but just like the feelings that you get at the end of it. Like it is really about saving people and not like, hey, look at this really cool battle that happened in real life and let's show you all the people that died in it, and like we won it, so it's good, and like yeah, go USA or go Allies, but like this one
that's the thing. They didn't even win this fucking battle.
Yeah, no, not at all. But it felt like a victory at the end.
Yeah.
Like the victory was just getting as many people out as they could. And yeah, man, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, the battle was lost already. Like this was a retreat.
Yeah,
like, that's all we were watching was a week of retreat.
Yes,
and
literally two dudes covering their retreat. Those Farrier and his wingmen up in those planes. That was all that was holding it down for them, because they don't have barracks where they're firing down on anybody. That's they're just sitting there, you know?
Yeah. Like they're either waiting to be rescued or waiting to die. And that's, I was reading some of the trivia of this movie, and apparently there were 30 survivors of Dunkirk there at the premiere of this movie. Man. And they said that like the movie very accurately captured the event, and they said that the one thing that they had gripe with was that the air and the actual bombardment was louder. It was too loud for like what actually happened in real life, I guess. But it says that this greatly amused Christopher Nolan. Nolan was happy about this, that they said that it was louder, because like I guess when a plane, when it is flying overhead and it's going that fast, you really see it. You see the plane before you hear it, because it is going fast. So like the bombs are dropping when you actually start to hear the plane. It's not really like this loud roar that comes in and then the bombs drop. So I guess I didn't even think about that, but for the movie it plays out like so much better to have it that way. Just to build the suspense and everything. But man, that's crazy to think that some survivors of this were actually there, like for this movie, like watching it. Like it's not like Interstellar. Like there's no, I don't know. It's a whole different kind of movie whenever it's actually covering something that is real. And that's why like I'm excited for Oppenheimer as well. And hearing that like there's black and white scenes and then there's color scenes, and apparently when it's black and white it's supposed to be like very objective, very actual, and in color is you know, made for the movie. This one we don't really get that. You know, there's no like very hard tell of like, oh, this is real, this isn't. But everything in this movie, sure as shit, could have been real. Like, I mean, it's like, how are you really going to know exactly what happened at this battle? Like, the overarching story is real, and that really happened. Like, so I think that's all that really matters, is like that. Sure, some of these character moments could have been made up, but like the overall story is very, very real, and that just makes it hit on a different level that like even Interstellar can't do for me. Like at the end of the day, after I finish Interstellar, I'm like, okay, like I would like you know, I like to put myself there and be like, oh, this is what a cool movie, and like I hope we maybe not get there where the Earth is, but like the space parts, Cooper Station and all that. I'm like, oh, that stuff's so cool. But I come out of it being like, okay, well, we're still in 2023. None of that stuff is real, and it's just a great movie. But after this movie's finished, I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, wait a minute, like. Those, like, there are real people in this world that are alive today that experience that, and like, and then the people, even not the soldiers, even the people in Britain at the time, like the actual civilians that went out there, like, and all the families and everything. Like, it's just a different tier, and like it just makes it hit on just a level that a fictional movie can't really do, I guess. But. Well,
and we were speaking to like the the realism of this movie, where it feels so raw and real. What's really fascinating about it is like the scope of it, though, like visually. It's a big fucking movie, like there's a lot of intimate scenes in close quarters, like, on the boats and stuff like that. But like your favorite shot, that long spanning down the fucking mole, like that's why the cinematographer here, 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀𝘁 is one of the best out there right now. The way that he can capture scale it borders on unmatched, because he also did Nope, and he did Interstellar, and he'll also do Tenet later on for us here. I don't know if you've ever seen Ad Astra with Brad Pitt. Another big,
okay,
big space movie.
Yeah, scale. That's like one thing that always been like just the sheer amount of people, or like even like one of the boats that was like tipping over and sinking. Like you get it like slowly going down in the water, filling up.
Again,
and then, like,
the practicality of Nolan, man. Like the planes you see in this movie, they're flying, and we're filming that. Like that's not like it's not like that's visual effects in later and we're just going to film the environment. No, they're filming planes that are flying around, and the person filming it is just in another plane flying alongside them. You know what I'm saying? Like that
is like having to, like I'm looking at there's a shot of a camera that's just strapped to the side of a plane, and it's showing the beach in the background. They had to strap a camera, an IMAX camera, to a plane, fly it, have all of these people on the beach there in the line. Like it's just insane that like the actual logistics that had to like go into like making this, like just to get all of that set up. And
that's what's so fucking cool about filmmaking, man, is having these visions in your head, going, this is how I want to make this happen, or this is what I want to happen. How do I make that happen? Yeah. And then coming to conclusions like, let's strap a camera to the nose of a plane. What? That's fucking brilliant. Like those are the sorts of things that, it's just hard to fathom. It's hard to fathom. And I enjoy that aspect of filmmaking so immensely. It's just the problem solving that comes with it. I want this to happen. How do I make that happen? And often those questions come with the most fulfilling and creative answers in the filmmaking process. And that's something that I think Christopher Nolan he's got a real knack for. And it's, again, Oppenheimer is going to keep coming up, as that's what we're in anticipation of. But the way they're talking about how they accomplished these sort of explosions and how they had to experiment with like, actual bombs and then stuff on like a microscopic level where they're dealing, like, that's nuts. That's so fucking cool. And I'm so excited to see that movie, man. But
it's like two whole sides of a movie. You get one while you're in it and watching it, and you're just enjoying the movie for the movie, and you're not even thinking of how they make it at all. Like, it's just like I'm watching and seeing what's happening, and then like after it's done, to be like, wait a minute, they had to actually film that. Like this isn't like blue screen or green screen. This is like, that's like they had, I don't know, they really did these things. And it's just, it elevates the movie even more for me. Like whenever, like we were talking about how like we like Wes Anderson and how like fantastical he can get, and like it's not the realism that he's focused on necessarily. It's like the story and like what he needs to, any colors or any lighting that he thinks is better for the story he puts in there, even if it's not real. But Nolan is kind of like the polar opposite of that, or he's like, I want to make it as real as possible. Like I want this to feel very, very real. And that, like, I think it just immerses you into the movie more. Like, and not necessarily that it's better because it's real, or that but it's just for this sort of for this sort of story. I think it does, like, for a war story. I feel like it might work a little better because, like, I wonder how Wes would go about like a war movie. How that would even work. I don't know how that would work.
If he were to make a war movie, I bet it would be stop motion animation.
Not actually. Yeah. Okay. That's probably true. That'd be too difficult to do it like in his style, but actually real and real explosions. Yeah, that'd be weird. But no, I think like Nolan, he I don't know, he likes these war stories, and like The Prestige, it's not necessarily a war story, but it's kind of like this war of electricity, like Edison and Tesla, and then these two people that are going back and forth. Dunkirk, a very clear war story. Interstellar is kind of like another, more maybe just survival is kind of like a very common theme in Nolan's and in Oppenheimer. I don't know. I'm ready. I am so ready for that. Like war is crazy, and it's crazy to fathom putting yourself in the shoes of a soldier, but then like in the shoes of the person who created like the worst thing that humans have ever made. Like I don't know. That's going to be something.
No, I saw I went and saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny in IMAX, what is now as of release, a week and a half ago. And the Oppenheimer trailer showed before it. And I'd only seen that trailer on a digital screen. I hadn't seen it on IMAX, where it's taking up the entire wall and the sound is accompanying it. That movie's going to be fucking nuts.
Yeah, like I knew the bomb, like the explosion's going to look good, but then like seeing the little like molecular blue like I don't know even what it was.
I don't even know what I'm looking at necessarily.
Yeah, it's like I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know I'm getting that at all, but I'm ready for it. Like it's gonna, that after like watching this movie and like seeing that it's not necessarily like the patriotism or like the nationalism that he's focusing on. It's really just like survival and like telling the story around that. I can't wait for what he's gonna do about, like, this is one battle that we see over the span of a week, but Oppenheimer deals with like maybe killing the whole planet at once. Yeah. So like the stakes are just even higher, which is nuts. And I don't know if it's like how far the story spans. If it's just like the creation of it, and then once it's created, like then it stops there. I don't will we get to like Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Like, will we see like is that the explosion we will see? Like,
I hope not. Just from a ethics perspective, I could imagine that they do something where they build up to that point, and then it's the aftermath. Like it's like the falling out of it, like how Oppenheimer wrestles with it after it's been done. I am interested in that. I'm super fucking excited for it. But I think the only true nuclear explosions we'll see are in I think the marketing for it is building up to the first official test of the nuclear bomb. Because all the trailers contemplation is like Matt Damon asks Cillian Murphy, like, so you're telling so there's a chance when we flip that switch that the world ends, and he goes, the chance is near zero. He goes, near zero.
Very scientific answer there, but yeah, it's like that. They had no idea what they were about to unleash, and I guess that could be it. Like just the first bomb, and once it's dropped, and that. But I think what the message of the movie is like, we did create this thing. A lot of people forget that we still have a shit ton of them on Earth.
Yeah.
Like, we still have those, and, like, they are very real. We just haven't, like, people back then, like, they would actually show that in theaters, like, before a movie, like, I don't know, like, they would show, like, nuclear tests, like, to people, like, people would just, they would know that this is happening around the world, but, like, now, like, we have no idea, and, like, people kind of forget about that, and I think, like, he's reminding people, like, hey, like, these are real, and look at the damage they can cause. Let's remember how bad they are. And I think what...
Oh, yeah. No, I fully anticipate that we're going to get some, like, this movie and, like, Interstellar and movies like that really give me hope for what the messaging of Oppenheimer will be, where I think it will be very, you know, like you said, when it comes from a black and white perspective, it is this presentation of fact and an objective standpoint. But I'm hoping that, you know, whenever we're not there, John Oppenheimer is not okay, you know, like it's, and that's what it seems like it's going to be, because
real life wasn't okay. Like he was devastated after that. Like I mean, like the real guy, like he felt terrible. Like he was
and
never
the fascination Nolan has with World War II, you know, as we see here with Dunkirk, and then telling the story of Oppenheimer here in a couple weeks, you know, like the idea that he's literally just putting himself in the shoes of the people of that time. And one of my favorite lines in the Oppenheimer trailer is when, like, I think it kind of keys us into Oppenheimer's ideal, like why he's doing it is because he says, like, do you know what will happen if the Nazis do this first?
Yeah.
You know, like that's
true. It's like,
that's it. You know, it's like,
ideally you don't want to. Like, ideally in the world, you do not want to even go there and not even create it. But, like, if they get it first... Do you know what
happens if the Nazis do it first?
Yeah. And that's, that. Like, I mean, the stakes were high in Dunkirk. And I don't want to, like, downplay Dunkirk at all. Like, I was there, and I'm, like... I was immersed in this movie. And I think that's what this movie does very well, is that there's no, like, harsh cuts or, like, harsh, like... It flows
there's
very
never
well.
a point where I'm lost, or I'm never lost, and I'm never disinterested. Like, this movie keeps me in it. This movie, more than any other movie I've watched by Christopher Nolan, made me the most excited for Oppenheimer. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I mean, I know we keep coming back to Interstellar and stuff, but like, there's this grandness to Interstellar and this personal internal battle that happens, like with like the morality of deciding this world's gonna die, we got to go build a new one, you know, like that's, you know, like you're kind of dealing with similar levels there with Oppenheimer, but literally the time period and the action of it and the scale of it, Dunkirk feels like it's going to end up being like the Dunkirk Oppenheimer double feature is going to go fucking nuts, you know what I'm saying? Like that's gonna be a time.
Like Interstellar, I love it just because it's my, like, sort of movie. I just recently watched it with Dee, and she liked it overall. But there was a lot of times in the movie where she was very confused as to what was going on. And I think that there is a whole lot of moving parts in that movie. There's so much going on at once, like back on Earth, back on Planet 1, then Planet 2, then Planet 3, and then in a wormhole, and then in a black hole. Like, there's so much shit going on, it's kind of hard to follow. Yeah. But Dunkirk is like... anyone, like, there's not really any confusion as to what's going on. It's like, we are in a terrible, terrible place. We are just trying to get out of here with our lives. That's all that's going on. And we see the events unfold. And it's like, I think it's a simpler story. That's for sure. Like, it's, I think, a much simpler story than Interstellar. Because, I mean, this one also has the fact that it actually happened in real life. So they have things to play off of there. But I think, like, this is a... overall, like I don't know how to, like, better, like, I think it's better made than Interstellar. Like, and that's...
I've had this struggle where, like, internally, where Interstellar, there's a level to it visual effects wise that it borders on unmatched by most movies, period. So it's kind of hard to compare stuff to it in that regard. I do think this movie is better looking on the whole. Because I think it has a lot of opportunity to be. You spend a lot of time in a space shuttle, and then you spend a lot of time on an ice planet, and then you spend a lot of time on a water planet. And, the most visually interesting stuff in a sort of bland way that's not, giant visual effects shots are actually on Earth. It's like that's when the movie's at its prettiest in Interstellar. Is whenever you are dealing with what's happening in the cornfields and everything that's happening there, and this movie, I think, washes that in terms of visuals. I think it's gorgeous. I think that the story it tells it's not quite as intimate, but I think it's more universal. I think there's something that more people can connect with about Dunkirk than they can with Interstellar.
Mm-hmm.
And I consider Interstellar one of my favorite movies of all time, which is the only reason I can't necessarily put it above it. But it'll, I would be interested in giving Interstellar a rewatch because it has been, I'd guess, about a year since we covered it on the 52-year journey through film. At least when we covered it privately, not when it released.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I think that shockingly enough, I would revisit this sooner than I would Interstellar.
Yeah. It's in November, at least when it released.
Yeah. So probably September recording, I would guess.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even August, but
no, I think like my enjoyment of Interstellar, I think, is higher.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I don't know, that is interesting now that I actually think about it. It's like, because this movie is just such a different kind of enjoyment. It's just the shock factor, like that every time you step back and think like, oh no, like these were real people at one point going through this real event, and like it's not like, oh, I'm looking at Saturn right now and like how beautiful that is, or like this black hole, like holy shit, that looks amazing, and like the space, like there's still suspense and stuff in Interstellar, but like the suspense that builds in this movie is, I feel like, unmatched. Like it doesn't, Interstellar doesn't quite touch that.
Well, what's crazy is that like what is pretty widely considered the greatest superhero movie of all time, The Dark Knight, I don't think it comes close to touching this in terms of quality. I think Dunkirk is miles better than The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Visually,
like this is gonna, like when we rate this one, it's gonna wind up high even compared to the Wes Anderson films, which I notoriously love. So like that's just how much I like this movie. You know what I'm saying, and how much I appreciate it. But I don't know, man. Do we have any more to say on it? Do we want to go ahead and give it a rating? Have you given all your favorites?
I think I have. Yeah, we both went with the scene. Civilian ships. I think that was just kind of a given there. Like, man, that was really nice. Yeah, I did give that. Performance was the only one where I was kind of like, I don't really know. I liked Tommy and Fionn Whitehead. I think like we followed him a lot. He actually had a lot of dialogue compared to a lot of other people, and a lot of like moral situations that he was put in. So I do think I will end up actually going with him. But it was like a movie that no particular character or no particular like actor really, really stood out, and I think that's kind of on purpose. Like, I think it is just like, it's this big, grand battle that's happening, and the character is really just like the army. Like, it's like, it is the military. Like, it's like, that's really who it is, and then you have the military is one character, the civilians are like another character. Like, it's not even just Mr. Dawson and his little boat, it's like all of them that come up at the end there. So it is, I don't know, I think it's just it is really weird to like nail down characters or performances for this one compared to like
but
other
it's really fucking good, man. And I think that like that speaks volumes about the quality of this movie. I think that there isn't necessarily a main character I think each story kind of has its figure through which you are seeing through, whether it's Harry Styles or Fionn Whitehead on the boat, or it's shit like when you get to the other boat with Cillian Murphy and Peter's actor. I can't remember his name, but yeah, I put him as my favorite character. Tom Flynn Carney and Mark Rylance. All of them kind of have there are different moments when you can tell the story is being told through a different one of them almost, where, Cillian Murphy's always this sort of outsider who they are just kind of observing and trying to treat with kid gloves, because he's a shell-shocked soldier. What are you going to do? It's a fascinating movie, man. There's only one character who's ever singular, and it's Farrier. He's the only one who's ever up there by himself. And
man, him getting captured at the end though was just like, God, man.
Sacrificed himself to save everybody, man. He's a.
And like at first I'm like, oh, he's landing on the, maybe he flew to like a safe beach or something. Maybe this beach is safe. I don't know. He didn't have much fuel. That doesn't make sense. And then I'm like, no, that's not what's happening.
He landed right about where the boat took off from, like that's.
He's right there. Yeah. But man,
he just gets out and he's like, yep, that's it. I know.
Had to blow his plane up, set it on fire. Like, and him just watching his plane burn too. Like, oh, that was a nice shot too. Just like his,
gorgeous.
Him just seeing all the like fire light. Like you don't even see the plane. It's just Tom Hardy and like the beach and horizon in the background.
Yeah.
But, man,
I loved this movie, and the more I talked about it, the more I loved it.
Yeah, enjoy. The Prestige was an 8, and
then that makes this at bare minimum 9. You know,
I think it. Let's see, of Wes's movies. Let's see, bare minimum 9. Life Aquatic is at a 9.25. Mr. Fox is at a 9. 9.25 Isle of Dogs. I don't think I enjoy it as much as Asteroid City, which is at a 9.
I was gonna say I think it falls between Isle of Dogs and Asteroid City. I think it's a 9.5.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's like this is a war movie that out of these movies that we're covering from Nolan, I thought this was going to be the one that I didn't like the most. Like just
I have no doubt this will be my favorite.
Yeah, like this.
I don't think there's any chance Tenet touches this for me.
And I don't think so either. Like seeing like this washes Tenet. This was just a very nice surprise, and yeah, I think 9.5 is fair here. Okay.
Love that.
Now,
love that.
Critically, visually, holy shit!
And
just the
astonishing
that was done.
Yeah.
Performances is weird. Usually you can say like, yeah, the performances were wild. It's not like not any one person took the show, or like I don't even know, did anyone even win? Like I wonder what awards this movie won.
I think it was all pretty technical. Like I think they.
Let's see. 65 wins, 233 nominated.
Yeah, best achievement in editing, film editing, sound editing, and sound mixing.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
The score, we didn't even mention the score. My fucking God.
Damn.
Oh, that was gorgeous, dude.
Like
Hans Zimmer was on his bullshit. Like we're talking this. There's one musical beat in Interstellar that just kind of rivals pretty much anything ever. So it's hard for me to say that it's. I think on the whole, though, it might rival Interstellar in terms of quality for Hans Zimmer. It was also nominated for Best Achievement in Production Design, Cinematography, Directing. It was nominated for Best Motion Picture of the Year and nominated for Best Music Written for Motion Picture. So it got a lot of awards, a lot of nominees. None acting though, because nobody rises above anybody else. It's all very consistent and all very. I think they're all kind of on similar footing. I find myself, again, I think I'm looking at a 9.25 or 9.5.
Yeah, because 975, that's Grand Budapest. And I don't know if I'm ready to quite say that this is Grand Budapest. But 925, Moonrise Kingdom and Mr. Fox there at a 925. Did we give any a 9.5? We did not.
I think this would be the only 9.5. And I can't confidently tell you it's... Sorry about that. Can't tell you it's better than any of those. I think I would go about 9.25.
I think that is nice there. Okay. And if we do go with that, it rounds this one out to a 9.33 for the average.
Pretty fucking strong.
Which is just barely below Asteroid City at a 9.42. Above the French Dispatch at a 9. A little bit above Darjeeling at a 9.25.
Above Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Mm-hmm.
I feel good about it.
Yeah.
Definitely above the Prestige by about 6%.
Yeah. And I do think that is fair. Let's see. IMDb gave it a 7.8.
Feels rude. Feels not quite nice enough for me.
That's a little...
That's something that IMDb has a lot in common. Consistently not very nice, I think. Rotten Tomatoes, however, has it rather kindly at a 92% critically and an 81% audience score. So we're on a similar page to Rotten Tomatoes as opposed to IMDb.
In Letterboxd at a 3.8. So that's
You'll find that's a pretty common rating for most good movies. High 3s. They got to be pretty universally beloved to be 4 or above.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, a very surprising movie out of this. Like I gained a new addition to my top 100 favorite movies on my Letterboxd list. You know, deserving. I think it's very deserving of that. Yeah, like it's shocked the hell out of me. Like I was like, wow, I just did not expect to like this movie as much as I did. And
one of the first viewing, I logged it and I was like, I have no doubt this is going to be 5 stars. You know, like, and I'm a pretty friendly critic on Letterboxd. You know, I give a lot of stuff 5 stars, but it's only if a movie truly resonates with me that deeply. And I know that a lot of movies do, but you know, there are plenty of movies that I don't give 5 stars. And this one definitely got that out of me. So I enjoyed this so thoroughly, and I'm astonished. And this one, more than any other movie, made me excited for Oppenheimer. So I'm very, very hype.
In the same vein, same war. So I like. Maybe this was a stepping stone to get to Oppenheimer. Maybe he always knew he wanted to cover this story, but wanted to see how we do with the World War II story first. But either way, I think we're
it makes me interested to see, like, do you think we ever dabble in any sort of warfare while we're watching Oppenheimer? Like, are there any scenes where like we take a look at a battle and it's like, I'm just kind of interested to see, because I mean, it is during World War II. It feels ripe for the picking as far as the sort of battles you could explore there. But I don't know. In a 3-hour runtime, you'd think there'd be plenty of.
That's true. Yeah, this was only an hour 40, like hour
45-ish.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, this was, I mean, just perfect. Like, I don't really need any more. I didn't really need any less. Like, this was perfectly, like, as much time. That 100 to 110 minute mark, you can pull it off in that time. You did something fucking good for me, baby. If you do it in even less, fucking fantastic. You know, and that's not to say that I sit down and watch 2.5-hour movies, 3-hour movies, plenty. You know, like, I did just watch the Batman last night, so like I did just sit down.
Like, it's never. It's if your story necessitates that, fuck yeah, do that too. But if you can pull it off in an hour and 40 minutes, you're doing something pretty fucking good. You know.
Oh yeah.
And Dunkirk, it fits that vein, and I loved this movie, so I'm very happy with it. But with that, I think we will conclude this episode of The Director's Spotlight. If you would, head to patreon.com/PennyBloomPod, where you'll find over 50 hours of exclusive content, including all sorts of comic book reviews, movie reviews, and the like. We've got a $1.50 tier, where you get my written reviews. I recently saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I saw Past Lives. I saw Across the Spider-Verse, all of which I plan on writing reviews for here very soon. And I'm excited for you all to see those. If you would, head to Twitter, follow at @PennyBloomPod, follow on Instagram at PennyBloomPodcast. Remember to leave a 5-star rate and review wherever you might be listening, and come back next week for Tenet, directed by Christopher Nolan. We will then be that's our last movie before Oppenheimer, so we're very, very close. And we're following Christopher Nolan with Greta Gerwig and what I'm dubbing the Greta Ger Week.
Nice. I like that.
Nice. Yeah, got some Greta Gerwig coming for us those days in the week after Oppenheimer. So a couple weeks removed from Barbie. But
it'll be polar. That's a very big switch there.
Big switch up. Big switch up from
and then to empowering women. I haven't even seen any of those movies, but that's quite the big switch.
Nolan and Gerwig are not the same type of filmmaker by any means.
I wouldn't think so. But
no, I'm very, very excited for that. But and then the comic book movie journey through film is going on right now. Last week was Blade Trinity, and this week is Elektra. Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly, we got Elektra coming this Friday, so we're on a streak of just wonderful movies there. And we're continuing our Game of Thrones rewatch right now on Mondays, so we got a lot going on for you. Patreon, for $3 a month, you can get the audio content that accompanies this podcast as well. Just all sorts of stuff there, so remember to go check that out. I was Colton Robertson. I was joined by Joseph George. Thank you very much, homie.
Oh, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and it is always a pleasure to have you. Remember, peace, love, and bloom. And what do you see? Home.